All right. Meanwhile, let's take a look here. I got all the runes for phase 3. Take a look at every rune and we just talk about it really quick here. We're starting with the new helmet rune here. We got shield mastery. 10% extra damage when you have a shield and disarm effects reduced by 50%.
It's either gonna be useless or insane, I think, for PvE, that is.
But bro, the disarm in PvP broken.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it'd be really good in PvP also. Like, be kind of weird having all your damage come from deep wounds in PvP, but that might be the case. It would be really goofy since, it's like the damage is going to come like 12 seconds after you do the crit. Because I could just imagine like it being very normal for a warrior to crit somebody like 3 or 4 times in a fight, die, and then the person bleeds to death, which is goofy. I'm kind of into it, but it's goofy.
If you ever 1v1 that warlock, you know that pain. It's not fun. Like you don't feel like you won when you kill him. Yeah, I think this rune is gonna be both. I think this rune is gonna be useless at the start of the phase, and it will only be like super busted once people transition to Fury tanking. Quick question here: do you think people are gonna go prot? I made a big gamble right now. I think most people are gonna should go prot at the start of the tier and then transition to Fury. How do you feel? Did you sim it yet?
Not yet, but like it probably will be, I think. Like I don't think like with what they've currently released, it seems like Prot would be able to hold threat. But Agron has been talking on Twitter about how they're going to change how threat works on moves, and that to me that sounds like they're going to add flat threat, and they're also going to make Shield Slam hit harder. But I imagine that he doesn't mean we're going to make Shield Slam hit 4 times as hard, so that way it can hold threat. I imagine he means like it's going to hit a little harder, and they're going to add threat to everything. But who knows? Maybe they just make Shield Slam hit super hard, and it's like Wrath.
I hope they do. It wouldn't even need to hit that much harder, right? Like, it would only need to scale a little. If you put 10% attack power on it, I think it would outscale Fury almost the whole time. But Shield Slam is absolute garbage. They did buff Swipe, so like they proved that they are willing to like change the base abilities now. And that's why I didn't get about the rune thing. Like we're gonna talk about it. It's one of the runes after that, but basically you get free Shield Slams. That was never the problem with Shield Slam, that it was too expensive. The problem is that it sucked. Just make it good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I don't really like those reactive things anyways. Like, I mean, that's just a personal preference. Nothing wrong with it. Like, same thing with like the Bloodthirst rune, or I think that's what it was called, the one that gives you the free slam. I definitely prefer like just using something on a regular CD and kind of like mashing my keyboard.
You gotta play the flowchart. You cannot play the flowchart, you quit.
Yeah, I want to just, it's like playing in classic era, you just like smack the keyboard, you put like your Heroic Strike, Bloodthirst, Whirlwind all next to each other, and you just go like bam on the keyboard over and over again, you pop your CDs at the right time. It's a nice play style, it's not really any skill, but...
Alright, let's take a look at this one here, Vigilance, okay? I am very bullish on this one. You put the buff on somebody, 10% of their threat is gone, and it goes to you. And it, as far as Agren says, this is affected by all your threat modifiers. So you're getting 10% of their threat, but you're getting the 15% defiance bonus if you have it. You're getting the 30% defensive stats bonus if you have it. So you're getting like way more than 10% of their threat to you. And on top of that, your taunt cooldown gets refreshed every time they get hit. Do you think that's going to be the meta?
What else are you able to pick there? But I doubt it. But it's kind of cool. I think like if somebody wants to do it and they think it's
Shield
fun,
Mastery,
like...
the 10% damage.
Oh yeah, probably not, but maybe. I mean, there'll be ways to use it where it'll be like fun. Like Vigilance wasn't super awesome in Wrath, but like it's fine. Like it's really fun to use, I think. Like just being able to taunt over and over again. If you play with a bunch of idiots that don't want to listen to you, like, and they're just constantly pulling threat, like, hey, it can be nice. Or if you put it on a healer, like, then at least you know the healer's not going to get fragged. Although it won't give you that much threat, and they usually won't be like
almost nothing
getting hit, but. Yeah, but like if they do get hit, you get your taunt reset. So I don't know. It's like if there's somebody that is essential that you don't want them to get hit.
I think there is 2 really good uses for Vigilance. First of all, like let's assume a bit that, because I don't know what the meta is going to be next phase, obviously. Let's assume we get something like the Enhancement Shaman situation again, right? Like where there is one class that is doing like 400 DPS and it does threat as if it were doing 1000 DPS. Like like there's... Most of my raid is fine on the Tremors, and there's this one guy that insists that he has to have double Rock Biter every fight, right? He does about as much threat as I do, sometimes even more. I can take care of that guy with this. That guy is not a problem anymore. He's an asset to me. And since he's pumping more than I am pumping at this point, especially, think about it this way. What if you had a gear differential with you? What if you are like kind of crappy geared, and your raid is, because you're an alt, and your raid is very well geared. Like, in theory, 10% of their stuff should be way more than 10% of your stuff. And also, the other use I find for this is AoE threat. Like, not necessarily AoE threat for the threat's sake, because 10% threat is nothing. But you put this on, let's say, a mage, right? Every time the mage is AoEing, he's gonna get aggro instantly. And you get a free, your taunt gets refreshed on cooldown, basically. Like, every time he gets hit.
Yeah, it could be pretty cool. It might make a difference with like an engineering item too, giving you a little bit of a lead. Weird stuff like that, like if your group isn't like super meta, if your group's kind of bad, I think like that has a better chance of making sense.
Yeah.
Like I remember like intervene isn't considered very good in Wrath of the Lich King, but if you're in a guild and you're like the third off tank on patchwork, you can intervene people to like save them from the hatefuls. Like if you see the healers like being slow, I mean you can't normally like actually react to that because it's so quick, but if you like see healers are low on mana and like a tank is low, you could like intervene and make sure you eat it. Although with hatefuls it's like kind of weird because the targeting, but
just for transparency, I think intervene is a very slept on rune. A very, like, people don't use it nearly as much as they should. It takes 10% of the threat away from the guy you throw it on. Like, whoever is the second guy on threat, 10% of their threat is a lot more than any ability possibly can do threat for you. You got 20k threat, that's 2000 threat. I don't think there's a single ability that does 2000 threat in a single GCD like intervene can do.
Yeah, I forgot about that part of it on in SoD. Yeah, like this weird like it can be practical if you're in a group that isn't doing meta crap, that's having a hard time. Anything where it's like the fights are kind of slow paced, there's a lot more chance for you to do really weird ass and help your guys out.
Like in a normal raid, this thing is gonna in a super tryhard raid, this thing is gonna suck because everybody's gonna be pumping. But if you play on a more or less normal guild, there's like 2 guys that really pump in that raid, and like the other guys are like just there, and that's when this room makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it could make a lot of sense there, situation like that, and that'll be pretty common. And it's kind of nice having stuff like that for when there's huge skill disparity in a group, because I mean, it'd be better if the group can stay mostly the same, because if the best players just dip on guilds and the guilds explode.
Okay, we got Rampage here. Warrior goes on a rampage, increases attack power by 2%, kind of like Bloodthirst here. We got 5 charges. Every time you hit again, you get an additional 10% attack power, 2%, sorry, until you cap at 10% extra attack power. And this thing is gonna last 30 seconds, and you can only use it after a critical strike. Apparently, there is no cooldown to it. And the opposite, I think it's like more fair, more easy if I just take the counterpart to it, the one intended for arms, because this is obviously intended for Fury, dual wield, hit fast. The arms one is your melee crit enrage you, your melee critical hits enrage you, increasing the critical strike damage of your attacks by 10% for 6 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not like a super big fan of either of them, but I hate doing stuff like Rampage. Like that came out on TBC, right?
Yes, I think it did.
I hate keeping like that up. Having a short duration steroid, that stuff sucks ass to use. I mean, I don't know, maybe some warriors like it, but like I feel like everybody I ever played is like, oh, I hate having to use this. Like I remember playing the kebab specs, that way I didn't have to do that.
So you don't have to press it though. That's what you're saying, because I never played DPS warrior.
I think so. Imagine however long it says it lasts, like you press it, it builds the stacks, and then it expires.
Oh,
so,
it's
like,
not a passive.
Like, I don't think so. Maybe it is, but I don't think so.
That sucks. But on the other side, like 10% bonus crit, 10% critical strike damage. So that means that only your criticals get 10% more damage now.
Yeah, and I wonder if it actually like works like 10%, or if it's like the impale talent. 'Cause like the impale talent, for example, it'll make you go from 200%. Even so, like it's 2 talent points that do 10% each on impale. If you get both of them, it makes your crit not go from 200 to 240. It makes it go to 220. So I'm wondering, does this make you go to 230? Because then it's like it's like a 5% like damage increase only on your crits, and then it's like, what the but we'll have to see.
Even if it weren't, right? Let's assume it is 10% to the total damage. This thing is terrible though, because like, let's say you got 30% crit, let's say you're freaking insane, you're like fully dripped out at this point. That is 0.3 times 0.1. That is 3% more damage.
Yeah, not great. People might have super high crit though, especially if they're like going Axe spec, because the you get like pretty much all the crit enhancing consumes, and almost all the world buffs. You don't get Onyxia, but you have almost everything that gives you crit. So people might actually have pretty high crit, but I'm not sure about that.
If I were to guess, I think Rampage is gonna be like better. Even Fall Arms is probably gonna be better. I don't know how fast you can probably stack this one up though. Like spamming hamstring when you get Rampage, I probably would do something like that.
Yeah, I'm curious how that's gonna work exactly, and also if the way it interacts with deep wounds, because it might be a different spell effect like type than I'm saying this weird, but like it might be a different modifier than the impale one, and so it might like not work the way we assume it does. Like maybe if you have a 100 deep a weapon that hits for 100 damage, like it's 100 to 100 on the stat, and if you swing and get a crit, maybe like it detects it's a crit, and so it rolls like 110 for the deep wounds. Maybe, but I'm not sure. Or maybe it like wouldn't actually make your deep wounds higher at all, and it would just make extra things.
You mean
Not
that
really sure how
deep
they're gonna
wounds
do
is
it.
technically a crit, so like this should give 10% to deep wounds too?
Well, as in like maybe it amplifies the damage of the hit before applying the deep wounds or
Before it
something
gets
weird. Like
calculated.
yeah, like maybe it helps like that. I don't know. I like there might be a way to actually answer that question for sure. Like because you might be able to just like there's probably people who know the spell IDs really good and can go into Wowhead and like answer that question already. But like I just don't. I'm gonna wait till the logs come out and like read the logs, figure it out, because that's like the idiot way to do it instead of like the reverse engineering hacker man way that some people do.
Well, like if you take a look at the wording, it says the critical strike damage. That kind of to me implies that it only affects the modifier. So that's only gonna like, of course, crits do 200% of the damage because it's double damage, right? But if it affects the critical strike damage, look at that careful wording right there. That is only 10% of the 100% bonus crit. So you're not gonna do 220%. You're gonna do 210% of the hit. So that will add up to like 3% more damage at 30% crit is crap.
Hopefully it's better than that, because I hate using Rampage. Or if Rampage is totally passive, then I guess I wouldn't mind it at all.
Yeah, if Rampage was a passive, like I don't see any wrong with it. Like I hate having to press it, of course, but like if it's a passive, like this sounds like a great ability right there. Sword and Board, this is the last one, okay? This is the one I am gonna be banking on for the start of the tier. And people thought I put a guide on April Fools, and people thought it was an April Fool's joke because I've been saying Go Fury for so long. That was kind of funny, but Sword and Board. When you devastate and revenge, you have a 30% chance of refreshing the cooldown your shield slam ability and reducing its rage cost by 100%. 30% of your devastate on your revenge that you're gonna get a free shield slam and it's gonna be off cooldown.
Yeah, I don't like procs a whole lot, but if they make shield slam do it'd be kind of weird to me if they made Shield Slam do excellent threat, and if it wasn't excellent enough that you just didn't give a shit about getting more. So I feel like this is a really high chance and like not mattering. But maybe in PvP it would be cool. I don't know. I don't know how they'd make that work, but I feel like in PvE, if Shield Slam needs this to make enough threat per second for you to hold threat, then it's like it's already screwed up. But if you don't need this, then it's kind of like who cares? So I'm really curious how it's going to play out. Maybe they make it into a PvP rune somehow. Like they give very high flat threat on a shield slam. They make it hit like twice as hard, which still would be damage. And then maybe in PvP it would be actually kind of useful. Not really sure though how this is going to work.
I don't know. I'm gonna give you a counter offer here for a second. Like this is the way I see it. What if you do not shield slam at all unless you get a proc? Because it doesn't get any more efficient than 100% free. It doesn't get no higher than that, bro. So what if this is just the Devastate one hit spec? You only do Devastate and Revenge over and over and over and over and over, and you only do Shield Slam when you get a proc. And if you get a dump ratio, just do Heroic Strike. And of course, I still think that this will get us outscaled by Fury. But we're not starting the tier with full besting slot. So I think at the start of the tier, this is gonna be like so much free threat, not better threat, not fast threat, just free threat. That is gonna be like the way to go for the start.
Yeah, I could see that maybe being a thing if, well, more so I think in PvP, because I imagine if it's if it's PvE tanking, you're gonna probably want to have consumed by rage, and so you usually have kind of an issue getting your rage low enough. So I don't think it'd be too much of an issue to like. I don't think there's a lot of value in getting a free shield slam. I don't know, maybe like if they make it so it's harder to generate rage, then I could see that being useful.
I was so sad when I saw this rune, man. I was like, please just put damage on it. Please, I don't care if it's like your shield slam does 5% of your attack power. That's all it would have taken. Everybody would have been happy. Nobody would have complained, bro. Like, how can you mess this one up so much?